Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and to another installment in the Dining Room Central Railroad build. If you were watching last time, you will have seen me extend the track up from staging through a single lap helix. This week, let's continue across the swing gate and into the second level. So without further ado, let's just head out to the workshop and get to work. It's Friday morning, and the main task for today is to build the middle level benchwork that goes above this staging yard. This area is slightly complicated by the two mainline loops that drop down behind it to a lower level. So let me show you what I'm doing. Here is one of the joists. As we can see, it has a step in it, and this cutout is for the low level main lines at the back. So what I've done is cut a whole load of blanks, and then I've made one master and I'll just draw around it. I need 15 of them, 2 of which are slightly different. I'll show you those later. Anyway, let me get on and make these, and I'll be right back. Don't go away. Well, the first step in making those pieces is to cut 2 curves on the table saw. These are the special ones here, with one saw cut 5 inches shorter than the other. In order to save having to measure everything repeatedly, what I did was just put 2 marks on the rip fence of the table saw, and I just push the wood in until I get to the mark, and then I know the cut is the right length. The next step is to draw around the master. I make sure that the back edge is exactly flush, and this end is also flush too. This end is not going to be right. I'm deliberately making them longer than I need to, and I can trim them off to length later. That way I have some tolerance. And then on the 2 special ones, there's a mark here 5 inches from the end, and when I turn it round, I line up the end with the mark rather than the end of the piece of wood. And as you can see, I've got a little bit of tolerance, and that is all the offcut. So once I've marked all those out, I will just get the jigsaw out and cut the S-bends. Now that I have cut all the S-bends, the next step is to take it back to the table saw, set the rip fence to 8.5 inches, and trim off this bottom bit. Let me do that quickly, and I'll be right back. With the joist now cut to the correct overall size, I am once again on the table saw. For this operation, it's necessary to turn the blade up fairly high. Normally you don't want excess blade sticking out the top, but for this purpose I need a steeper angle where it disappears into the wood, because I have to remember to stop about 1 inch short. If I put the blade low, I'd be stopping 3 inches short. I've taken the piece that I cut out of the first joist and used it to mark a line on the rip fence where I have to stop pushing. So now I need to make 13 of those, and 2 that are 5 inches longer. So let me get on with those, and I'll be right back. With those cuts done, this next step is to turn the piece round and do the same from the other side. I've erased all the old marks on the rip fence because I was getting a lot of them, and I've put a new one where I now need to stop on this step. Let me do that, and I will be right back. With both of those 2 corner cuts completed, there are just 2 steps left. One is to finish off that corner with the jigsaw, and the other is to drill some wiring holes. So I'm just going to complete those steps quickly, and then those pieces will be ready to incorporate into the benchwork frames. Well, here is that first frame built and positioned where it's going to go, although it's obviously too low right now. I need to jack it up on legs, and I think it goes 6 inches higher than that, but I have to check. This piece is a little less than 8 feet long, the idea being that it will go across the truck that is 8 feet wide. And then rather than build one that's slightly more than 8 feet to go in here, I'm going to build it as 2 short sections, because that will give me more options when it comes to filling up smaller spaces. Also, with the curve in the front fascia around the end, I can make that job a lot easier by framing the last frame a little bit narrow. That way I can put a piece in front of it. Hopefully that will become obvious once I've built it. Anyway, I would like to just go ahead and build the next frame right now, because that's real easy. But I think it's better to get the complex one in at the far end. That way, if I end up having to modify the length slightly, I can then adjust the one next to it to fit exactly. The track that comes around the end is a little bit lower than main level, so I've got to make sure I don't mess that up. And also there is a window ledge in the way. I've got to make sure I miss that as well. So let me go and work that out, and I'll be right back. With the two end pieces assembled and placed accurately in position, it's a simple matter to measure the gap between them and then build the other one to fit. And here is the other one. This one goes between those, and it should fit exactly if I've measured correctly. The next thing I have to do is arrange all the mini legs to put the three sections on, and then I can install them. So let me do that, and I will be right back. Don't go away. Well, I didn't get a chance to get that section raised up to where it's going to be because I had visitors, and by the time they left the day was almost done. But I did get the legs glued up. Here they are. So I'm just going to separate these, clean them up, and then it shouldn't take too long to get those benchwork frames raised up into position. So let me do that, and I'll be right back. Well, I've just run them all through the table saw quickly on both sides just to get all the glue off, so they now have nice clean edges. And also trim them to the right length. So now it's time to install them. Don't go away. Well, there are those three sections permanently mounted at the right height. I made one mistake. I've got to take the front four legs out and shorten the flanges because I forgot to allow for the ½ inch where the cross bearers are lowered so the plywood can fit inside the stringers. And I've also got to arrange a special leg in this corner so that the sections either side of the swing gate are properly secure. But that was always going to be a custom leg. Much better to do it once everything else is in place so that I can take measurements from the actual benchwork. Well, since I'm going to have to lay the track on the lowest level of the swing gate, I ordered 2 curved picot turnouts last week. They arrived this morning, and I've also printed out full size this portion of the track plan. I don't have a large format plotter, so I just did it on 8 individual sheets and then tape them together. It's no big deal, it's not difficult. I've modified the alignment at this end. As you can see, the inside route of the curved turnout lines up exactly. The outside route takes a slightly wider arc and goes through that gap to the straight track that I've already laid. And that has the effect of moving the throw bar well away from the benchwork joist. You can see the position is marked by the screws, and the switch machine is now well away from it. At this end, I want to make sure the alignment is exact because the client has already purchased a full-size template for the whole railroad, and he'll be laying the track according to that template. I'm not going to be installing this first turnout because of the increased chance of destroying it in transit. The fewer benchwork sections that I can get away with having track on, the better. So anyway, the next step is to mark out that curve, and then I'll put some road bed in and then glue the track down. So don't go away, I'll check in with you again later. Well, that's all I'm going to do today because I have the wood blocks at the moving joints all clamping up, and by the time that glue is set it'll be time to go in anyway, so I may as well just make it an early day. Well, the first task this morning is to get the track installed on the bottom level of the swing gate. I got the road bed in last night and some wood blocks at the ends. This is just offcuts of the plywood from the fast track tie strips. It's still lower than the foam rubber, but I will be adding styrene to the top of that. And I have some scraps that I just brought in from the basement. The turnout is in the right place, although not glued down yet. and I have curved a piece of flex track to the approximate shape. Next thing I'm going to have to do is cut it to length, make 2 pieces to go in there, and then figure out exactly what thickness of styrene shim I need under the copper ties at the ends. So we'll do that, and I will be right back. Well, all the track pieces have been cut, and I've also glued styrene strips and copper ties to the wood blocks at the end. I found that a piece of 40 thou styrene was perfect, except in one place. This one for some reason was marginally high, so I used 30 thou there, and that made it perfect. This piece of track here is deliberately cut long at the moment. I will get the rest of it installed and then cut this to exact length. So I think now it's time to get the glue out and install this track permanently. Let me do that, and I will check in with you again later. Don't go away. Well, that track is now installed. I haven't soldered the ends yet. I'm going to let the adhesive set up for a little bit and then solder them. And also you may notice that I have not put any glue in the last 2 inches next to any of the joints. That allows for fine adjustment later on. Anyway, while that glue sets up, I'm going to work out what I need in the way of framing above it. Although I'm probably not actually going to install anything just yet, because that will restrict access to the rail joints below. Well, here is a setup for figuring out where the grade needs to go across the swing gate. I have a block of wood clamped to this surface, put a 4-foot level across the gap as a straight edge, bearing in mind of course that it's not going to be level, and then I put my grade tool on top of that with another level on top, and we can see here that that bubble is showing exactly a 2% grade, so that is where the roadbed needs to be at that end. Note that it's resting on top of the plywood at this end. So once I have drawn a line along the top of that block of wood, I've then got to use a scrap of 1/2-inch plywood to draw another line below it, and that lower line will then be my cut line. Well, it's been a little while since my last update. I now have the end soldered, I have the benchwork in above it, and I have the next piece of sub roadbed in this corner. Although this only takes a single curved track around where that level is, it's necessary to go all the way to the corner of the frame because it's structural. The swing gate being where it is means that all 3 levels in this corner need to be firmly anchored to the wall, and I don't want to rely on the stiffness of that thin strip of plywood. It's much better to have it tied to the wall firmly with a solid horizontal piece. The next step is to start cutting the tops for this area, and of course the grade that goes up the back. So let me start working on that, and I will be right back. Well, this is about all I have time for today. I have this piece built. The risers are all glued in, although the top is just resting there. I don't want to put the screws in until the glue's had time to set. I've got most of the tops cut for this area, and the sub roadbed climbing up the back. Once again, it's not glued down. The spacer blocks are glued in place, but I'm going to wait for the glue to go hard before I attach the top. I can't screw this piece down just yet because I need to lay the track underneath it first, but that will be a task for tomorrow morning. And also this piece at the end is not screwed in place yet because I haven't cut it to size. This corner will be cut off on a curve, but as of yet I'm not quite sure where it needs to be cut. So once again, that'll be a task for tomorrow. Anyway, don't go away. I will see you then. Well, this is what this corner looks like after a couple more hours this morning. You can see that I have the foam roadbed in all the way across the swing gate. I have the anchor points installed, and 2 yards of flex track around this corner. So now this top can be permanently installed above it. I've also got some more of the ramp gluing up over this area, but that will be a job for later. Let me get this top installed and then I can work onwards from there. So don't go away, I'll check in with you again later. Well, I've had a pretty good afternoon's work. I've been doing the 2 opposing grades along the back, the one up and the one down, and they come to meet each other in this corner. There's still a few more risers missing at this end, but I don't have any more time today. I've got things to do this evening. Anyway, this view here shows my method for getting the grades even. Just clamp the longest level I've got on top of the roadbed, and then I use my leveling tool to make sure it's both the right angle and uniform. Well, with approximately half of the second level framed up, I'm going to leave it there for this week. In the next installment, I'll continue the second level bench work around the end and onto the peninsula. So don't go away, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching and bye for now.